Way back in 2023, I made a set called the Usurper's Palace to publish as a card a day on the Custom Magic subreddit. It was a set with a bunch of themes on it going on with 10 two-color factions. Under the hood, I also had set 6 secret themes built into the story of the set. These themes were horror, deceit, queer pride, myself, and romance. This was to fit with the theme months of discussion on my blog, where I would summarize and explore the cards, and in the even numbered months of the year, I do those themes. Now, I haven't looked at these Usurper's Palace cards for a few years, so what I want to do here, and if you can't tell, it's unscripted, is I want to reflect on these 28 cards from February that try to express romantic ideas in the context of Magic the Gathering, which is also a game about attacking each other with fairies and elves. I promise I'm giving my best first impression of these cards, knowing that I know the designer. I've looked through them briefly to see if they're what I wanted to do for the particular video. And I'm going to try and talk through what they're doing live as a person encountering the cards. And then I also want to talk a bit about what I was doing and the choices I was making. This is also hopefully going to be useful examples of the kinds of things I talk about when I say we want to be designing with intention. I also want to do this kind of thing more often with more cards, and like the whole point of the opening and title cards of this series is that it's going to feature stuff about custom Magic cards. But I don't want to do that to random people who didn't sign up for it. I'd much rather get volunteers to show me their cards and then accept, as it were, the review. Remember that I am positioning myself as at least a little bit of an expert in this regard, that I have a degree of skill when it comes to designing Magic the Gathering cards, and also that I have a degree of awareness of how to design good gameplay. That's not to say I am the definitive source, but I am saying this as if I have a reason you should listen to me. Okay? Okay, now let's look at some cards I designed and where I will be embarrassed and make fun of myself. The idea behind Usurper's Palace was one of the first sets I designed where I tried to make sure that there was what I considered to be a story. That I could sit down, map out factions, and tell where and what things were. I think it's possibly the first year I actually designed 365 daily cards to be a set with the proper proportions and breakdown between everything. There's some tricks and techniques I never really thought about when I was doing this process, like how valuable things like reprints are. But broadly speaking, Usurper's Palace was designed to be a whole set designed for commander play. So I want you to imagine the idea of cracking boosters and drafting commander decks, as that is the default way of playing with this set. That means the power level on some things is a little high. I also think that, in general, a lot of decisions that were being made at the time regarding rarity were off base, and I think that Wizards of the Coast have come around to this position, that largely commons are better now than they used to be, and sets don't tend to have any duds. Nonetheless, these are the framing elements of Usurper's Palace. And one of the ideas in Usurper's Palace is that there is a problem in the world, and indeed a power, known as reckless love. This card here was designed because I just thought the title of the idea was so cool, and a couple of cards referenced it. Now, when I say a couple of cards, I don't think that I did flavor text very much in this set. I know there was a period where I didn't do flavor text on cards at all, because I think flavor text is quite possibly the hardest part of any given Magic card. I think it's very easy to get something on the card that's worth recognizing. Like, you can get mediocre flavor text very, very easily. It's hard to get good, interesting flavor text that advances the game and is useful to players. So understand that there's going to be an uneven presence of flavor text here. Flavor text also eats space that's really necessary in my mind for things like reminder text, and I just like rules more. I like playing with rules. So Reckless Love. This is a card that plays with one of the basic themes of this sub-theme, the idea of romance, which is to say the idea of gifts. I think of love as a giving action. That in my mind, when you love someone or love something, you can give to it without it diminishing you. Magic the Gathering is not a game that does a lot of giving. So this card and many cards like it had to have some reason for you to give it and to be okay with giving it. In the case of Reckless Love, the card is a pretty straightforward buff. One of those 4-mana auras that give quite a beefy amount of stuff, but you've still got to have the thing with the aura survive to make use of it. And it has a escape mechanic to let you recoup things. Escape was one of the theme mechanics of the set because the underworld had been rendered open by the actions of the usurper. Reckless Love, this card seems fine. I worry as a designer that this card is pretty much perfectly positioned to never be satisfying. If it cost less, it would be the kind of thing that you could get too early and it would run over someone. It would be very like a very expert player is going to have plans and going to have a deck that either doesn't care about this or can deal with it. Whereas a less expert player, what we might like, the lower bracket commander decks, which they didn't exist at that time, lower bracket decks could possibly get absolutely romped by this card and not have a good way of dealing with it. But on the other hand, winning by combat damage. Lol, am I right? Anyway, this was just a workhorse workhorse uncommon with a name. So, I guess the next thing is to talk about the ideas in the set and, where this is coming from, the story and the character. So, we have to talk about Ulaine, Burning Heart. In the setting of Usurper's Palace, there's a great big whirlpool in the center of the world with a palace built over it sticking up out of the water like an oil rig, and that is the Palace of the Dead. Dead people's ghosts go to the palace and then go down into the whirlpool, and the whirlpool isn't meant to be there constantly. It's meant to swirl momentarily as ghosts go. But someone has taken the throne of the god of the dead in the palace and are therefore holding that door open. So that's why everything can escape, and that's why there's more spirits floating around. This is also meaning that certain things metaphorically don't die. One of the problems this leads to is planeswalkers keep coming back to this world because their desire to leave, their memories of wanting to leave, don't die. So they just keep coming back, even though they can't help it. They will unconsciously planeswalk back to this world and then have to spend some time here before they get out. This prison effect pulls more and more planeswalkers into it until they have a conflict with this person in charge of the palace, and then the story advances. The character of Ulaine would be a, box rare card. She is meant to be someone that people have the false impression is responsible for all of this malarkey, because she is a planeswalker who explicitly indulges and endorses the idea of reckless love. She is meant to be this flighty kind of character who is constantly picking new paramours. She is the love that burns bright and passes. She is meant to be someone who can break up with you and come back to you in the same week, and it's okay. So, obviously, this is always going to run into a problem where I'm trying to represent a character who is incredibly enticing and exciting, and also I have almost no space to do that with, and I'm not good at writing that kind of character, so, you kind of have to come with me on this one. Mechanically, the way it's represented, Ulaine does a steal, which red and black can both do. Red does not typically get permanent steal with a condition. Black does get it. Black has a couple of cards that let you do it. At the time, Enslave was being printed a bit more in Commander Precons, so I felt that, this is a thing Black gets a bit of. Notably, though, Ulaine being attacked and going away is a big impediment to, maintaining that effect. In a lot of ways, this is not a planeswalker as conventionally understood. She can't really win you the game entirely on her own. She's powerful, by all means, because she can go to other creatures and she can send threats around, and you can use her to you can reset her when she takes a lot of damage, which I do like as representing the story of this character staying in the fight, being there on the battlefield, reveling in it, taking a few hits, and then being like, "Oh no, I'm out of here." It's very flighty. I like that about her. But ultimately, I feel looking at her, it is a little underwhelming when you realize just how much of a utility card she is, when she should be, as it were, on the box, showing that she drives the story. I don't think this card is bad. I think I did a bad job on delivering on how important Elaine should be. There probably should be more cards in the set. This is a trick I recommend for anyone. If you have a character you want to represent and they're overstuffed on their one card, split them into a bunch of cards. Have a card to represent the character physically as a legendary creature or a planeswalker or whatever, and then make instants and sorceries that reference that character, and it's explained as like, this is how they do things. It's a much better system, I find, than trying to make one card do everything. Next, we have the other legendary character in this crop, Avil, the Matchmaker Mask. Now, real quick super lore note for mega language geeks. Masqui, spelled like that, is not a term for a fancy mask. In the context of the Usurper's Palace, it is, however, a specific term for a faction known for throwing parties. A mask is a type of party. So I remember getting corrected at the time by someone who was like, it's a shame that this person who's making these cards doesn't know how to spell the word mask correctly, or doesn't know that mask is not mask. They were right, but also there's a bunch of lore that they didn't know. Whatever. The mask are vampires who have done something to destroy their own Dane. They are a faction of changelings in the settings. There are two factions of changelings in the settings. There are the ones from outside of human society who are faceless, nameless fae. They are scary. They are meant to be the wilds untamed. And then there are the ones who live inside the cities. This is how I distributed changelings across all 5 colors. You had a kind of a primal ones, and then you had the ones where the changeling represented something very sapient, very sentient, and also very threatening. Like, in a regimented society where people are under control, someone who cannot be controlled and cannot be recognized, someone who is beyond what Foucault would call the capacity to punish, is a very scary threat. And that meant that the vampire hierarchy, there's a vampire hierarchy, built their society. When they needed their assassins and spies and whatnot, they made the masks. And the problem with that follows hard upon that is that the second you make an unaccountable spy agency, it just runs out of control and it'll do messed up stuff. Not relevant to anything at all. Abil is a mask who rose to power and position in the faction and is now at a level of rarefied power and protection that they can just mess around doing things that keep them entertained. They are easily bored, and that's what the mechanic is meant to represent here. This is someone who is constantly dancing, who is constantly making schemes just because they find them more interesting. This card lets you give cards to other players, even cards that you don't own, but they don't get into the battlefield abilities. So it isn't as simple as that's got a negative enter the battlefield ability or that's got a positive battlefield ability, I'll give them to me. It's rather that you have to always be looking at the battlefield in terms of, if I give this gift to you, will you spend the energy to do something with it? Or can you use this technique to get rid of permanents conveniently? I think this is a really interesting mechanic. I also really love it because this wording in particular, under target opponent's control, means that this can have some use in 2-player. Like, you get to manifest a creature if you want to. You get to turn one of your opponent's creatures into a 2/2 on your turn quite cheaply. But it doesn't really get rid of them in any kind of permanent sense. The card itself is quite vulnerable. And the fact that you have to give it to an opponent means that in a multiplayer game, the abilities of this multiply outward. I think this is a really interesting design. I don't know if it's good, but I do think as helming a deck, I think as a commander, this asks you questions like, what can you do with this? What are the cards that you can find to synergize with this that don't nullify what it's for, right? I think this is a good commander because it asks questions. I don't think that you would run it in the 99, which is a sign that the card probably isn't very good, and you'd only ever build it as a commander out of sheer novelty. So, middle of the road kind of card here. And now we move out of the characters into the specific cards. Courtly Paramour. This is a 2-1 for 1 white with 3 and a white tap. You and target opponent each draw a card. This is a card where I was using the flavor text to represent the effect Ulaine was having on the Crown, the Vampire Society, and also to play in that not new but new-ish space of what if white gets repeatable card draw with an ally or an enemy. I think that mechanic is underexplored because players don't like it. I think that the problem with it is it's not good enough when they print it. And I think they make it not good enough when they print it because they know players don't like it. You get this vicious cycle thing. But I do think a couple of really pushed examples of symmetrical draw would be a really cool thing for the players that do like it and the players who want to take advantage of non-symmetries. Also, I'm a sucker for a utility 2-1 for 2. 2-1 for 1. I think that this is a type of design that I want to see a lot of in Commander because I really do like Commander games that come down to combat damage. Even if the combat damage is just about ensuring that your opponent doesn't have as much life to blow through when they start doing weird stuff. Like, pressure should be meaningful. And I think that when you have as many life points as you do in Commander, the creatures can afford to just attack and block better. Of Unwoven Strands. Okay, this is a great opportunity here because I know what the point of the sagas were in this set, but I cannot tell you what story moment this is meant to represent. So, it's a saga. It costs 1 and double white. Its chapters 1 is target opponent gains control of this, and 2 and 3 are creatures can't attack this turn. You can't cast enchantment spells this turn. So it's kind of a fog that you pass along to someone. It's basically telling someone to sit down. But notably, you can't cast enchantment spells. I don't know what that's doing. I think, in my dirty little heart of hearts, I think this might have been designed to be a kind of a hate piece to slow down Underworld Breach decks, which, that feels very narrow, and it doesn't feel very interesting, and worse, I don't get what the story is. Like, looking at the art, it probably comes from some it's probably fan art of a Greek myth, or I probably found it looking for something like Greek myth, possibly Sappho, and I know the names of the sagas in this set were all built around the idea of being a prepositional phrase. For those of you who are grammar nerds, you get a prepositional phrase with it's an adjective which is formed with a positional term. So like of, with, at. There's a whole bunch of them, and if you were a particularly odious nerd, you had to memorize them as a kid, and I did. But then they went and made more of them, so I feel stupid. Anyway, point is, this is not good. This is a card that if it has a purpose, if it's doing anything, I don't know what it is. It's not obvious looking at it, and that means it's probably very narrow. If it's narrow and it's not inspiring, if this card isn't asking you questions and making you go, ooh, why do I want that? Then I think it's failed. If it is meant to be a hate piece for something like Underworld Breach, then it's probably too expensive because you need to be able to make your hate pieces very cheap to get them under the wire before a counter war. Like, you need something you can force through. So, yeah, I do think this is a genuine thumbs down, strict downvote design for me. I don't know what the story could be here, and I think without going back and finding it, the card doesn't do anything to explain it. Bad designer, no biscuit. Don't know your decisions. Share a Lightling. Okay, so this might be a hint here. The Lightlings, Brightlings, and Glimmerlings in this set were enchantment creatures. This is before this was a particularly standard thing, which represented elements of life that were disconnected from souls. So someone died and their soul would go to the Usurper's Palace, and normally their life energy would dissipate because, death was happening. But because the Usurper was messing with the process of death, that life energy swilled around, and you had different things forming as living incarnations of the effect of them. effectively, they were the very color pie-ish creatures that they were. So, lightlings, lightlings and brightlings, I think, are two of them. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but they share the evoke mechanic. And this is because I'm a big freak who loves evoke. I'm just the kind of player who looks at Carador and Shriekmaw and just thinks, I want to do this all day. This lightling is, on the face of it, just a big dumb idiot. She is a 7/7, she's a 7 mana 5/5 flying vigilant spirit angel enchantment creature. When she enters the battlefield or dies, you and target opponent each draw a card and gain 2 life. In a 2-player game, you would not spend 4 mana to draw 2 cards and gain 4 life. But in a multiplayer game, you might spend 4 mana to draw 2 cards, gain 4 life, give someone those 2 cards, and split the cards and the life you're giving away. Bonus, in a typical 4-person pod, that means that actually this card is saying everyone gains life except you, Gary. And I think that has some fun political implications. I like the lightlings. I like the idea of purposeless life finding a thing to do with itself. And I do like the way that in my memory, the white and green ones are very different to the black and blue ones. But I'm not sure. Okay. But yeah, I think that this card is fine. I think that its biggest problem is that like the body you get for the price isn't really worth it. I might have been overly scared of scam, of using some instant reanimation effect, or just a reanimation effect at all. Like, a 5/5 flying vigilance would probably be kind of worrying to get on turn 3 or 4 if you're playing standard, but like, I don't see how you're getting that with an evoke cost of 4 as well. Anyway, it's a card I like. I like what it's trying to do, but I don't think it's good. I don't think that this card would be being put into a deck unless you had a really specific urge to, like if you're playing an Enchantress style deck. Oh, Paramour's Protection. Okay. So, Paramour's Protection is an aura for 1 and a blue. It's an enchantment aura. It has enchant creature you don't control. And then it has, when Paramour's Protection enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. And if enchanted permanent would be destroyed, instead remove all damage marked on it and destroy Paramour's Protection. This is a super interesting, weird rules phrasing. There aren't a lot of cards that use the wording marked on it. There is some reminder text that does it, but broadly speaking, marking damage is done under the layer of where people obviously pay attention to these things. It's meant to be just that little bit harder to remember because, like, you don't need to look at it. Originally, Paramour's Protection had Totem Armor, and then I wound up not using Totem Armor very much in the set, and this became the only Totem Armor card that really got left, I think. And as a result, I just spelled it out on the card. The other thing is, Totem Armor interacts with the creature it's on in a weird way as intuitively, right? Typically speaking, a less expert player, when they see an aura on a creature, think of those things as belonging together. So you'll often find new players, when you pacifism their stuff, you will get the occasional thing of like, oh, can I sacrifice that pacifism? Like, and you have to explain, no, that's mine, it's just on your thing. And this is a thing that everyone learns, but there is some rules awkwardness that can come up with it. After all, if I own this creature, if I own this enchantment, why can I remove damage marked on the creature? Is that a thing I can do? And you can, obviously. This continues the idea of love as a giving action, the notion that this is like the well wishes of someone to protect. My biggest problem with this card as a design is the flavor does not hold in blue. I think that blue can do giving. I think blue can do this kind of thing. And like the hypothetical thought of like, I love you, I am thinking well of you, but that should incarnate itself as I have a plan to protect you. Something like False Demise would actually work better, where when the creature dies, it comes back out of the grave because, like, surprise, I actually had an escape route for you all along, my love. That would work. But the actual wording, the clean wording here, that's designed to just make it one game action that just goes away, I feel that's a little weak. I feel that it doesn't work out very well. Also note that it does say enchanted permanent would be destroyed because I thought at the time I wanted it to happen to creatures even if they change types. But the thing is, it says enchant creature you don't control, and the problem that flows from that is if the thing changes type and stops being a creature, then then this aura is gonna fall off anyway. So that's a rules mistake on my part. Hypothetically, you can do this on, enchant non-land permanent. That's also or you could do enchant permanent, and then you can use the wording, this can only target a creature. But like that stuff is just that's really, really awkward. And all of this just to try and design a card that's the much sought after blue 2-mana draw 2. Unvolunteerer. Ooh, I was really straining for things in the love theme to give blue, because blue mechanically has a ton of stuff that works kind of opposite to how I think of love. I think that you can attach the feelings and thoughts of love to almost anything blue can do, but it's better and deeper if the game mechanics express and reinforce it. And for a lot of blue stuff, blue's manner of love is going to be very thoughtful, cerebral, perfection, and choice driven. And that's great. I think you could do a lot with that, but game mechanically, how do you represent, like, I choose to love you? Ironically, one of the ways you can do that is with commitment, which means designing a blue card that deprives you of choice, because you're saying, like, I have chosen to make this commitment. Anyway, on Volunteerer, I don't know, this card is small, annoying, and it's got an effect on it that's just a little thoughtful. So what we have here is a 1 blue, 1/1 flying spirit with, whenever you put one or more counters on Unvolunteerer, exchange control of it and target creature and opponent controls. So I think I see the rationale here, which is to say that you can use instant speed counter dumping to put something on the Unvolunteerer and then swap it when something bad is going to happen. Like you can protect a creature by swapping it with the Unvolunteerer. And that's but the thing is, the only creatures that you want to swap in that case are creatures you don't control. Otherwise, you'd just be using this to steal stuff, right? And that's not very interesting. That's just an awkward and slightly clumsy Gilded Drake. I don't know. This card has real last card in the file feelings to me. I think that while I can see the choices I wanted to make, I didn't give myself enough time to think them through. And I think that really I should have bit the bullet and done something extremely different to what this card is asking for. Like, whatever this card is meant to achieve in the context of the set, it needs to be reprioritized. It might just be that I thought I needed more small blue flyers at Uncommon. See, you know, I'm not just mean to other people's cards. Yearling Bloodliner. 2 and double black for a 3/4 Vampire Rebel. It gets +3/+0 as long as it's the only creature you control is attacking or blocking. And it has the adventure Flaunt Strength, which is double black for an instant adventure. Destroy target creature attacking one of your opponents. I love this kind of design. I love when a card's pieces all tell you different things about what it is. I don't know if this is doing a good job of conveying it, right? I think the name could be improved here. Because what's happening here is the Yearling Bloodliner gets +3/+0 as long as it's the only creature you control is attacking or blocking. This is a card that is self-oriented. This card wants to be the only one doing the thing. This card wants responsibility, authority, power, that kind of thing. That works really well. It's effectively saying, hey, look, I will punch above my weight if you just put all your trust in me. And the name of the adventure, Flaunt Strength, coupled with what it's doing, this is a really efficient kill spell that's only good for if your opponents are being attacked. So Flaunt Strength is this creature appearing out of nowhere, killing something, possibly after it's already done combat damage. So, you know, thanks, mate. But the vibe is still there. You can use it politically. And then, after they've done this demonstration of how cool they are, then they land on the battlefield and they want you to treat them like they're very important. I think that's all really good. I think that also has a feeling with the sort of like vampiric self-importance as a lover. Like, this vampire wants you to want him to be your boyfriend because he's so cool and so strong. His vision of love is one where your love of him reflects him. Does that come across on the card? I don't think so. or at least some of it does, not enough of it does. I do think Yearling Bloodliner should be replaced with some other better name. Cloudkeeper Paramount, 4 in white and a blue for an artifact creature, construct knight, flying, vigilance. It is a common, and it has the adventure Preserve Calm, which is white and a blue, instant adventure. Counter target spell that targets an opponent. You and that player each draw a card. So, this is probably overpushed as a common. I think that I understand from people who are better than me at Limited that big, beefy 4/4 flyers tend to be good. I haven't found that so much so myself, but like consider that in the limited environment I'm currently playing in, a 3/3 for 5 with Changeling and an enter the battlefield ability and flying is pretty solid. So a big vigilant flyer is probably overpushed at this point. On the other hand, Commander Draft, different space, different world, don't know. I like the idea of this as basically the same thing as the Yearling. It is a card that is using its adventure to express something it's doing. It's like, I'm showing up to protect you from something, and we both learn from that experience, hence drawing a card. It is an artifact because that is one of the husks, which is one of the things that happens in this setting, in that your soul can be removed from your body and your body still works, and your body is now like a meat golem that people can use, and those things become husks. Husks are a different point of the lore, and part of the problem is that this happened for so long that the husks are starting to get personalities, and it's a problem. I think that all started because I saw some Bionicle fan art. Don't know if that's going to show up in this collection. Anyway, I like this card a lot. Like, I desire this card. I want to own a copy of this card to jam into a casual deck, because I think this card hits that sweet spot. Like, literally, sweet spot. I look at this card and go, oh, that's sweet. I don't know if it's very good. I do think that the size and the vulnerability represented by being both an artifact and a creature make it just a little bit on the ropey side, but also you're just getting a lot of stuff for a common. So I would understand entirely if this was too pushed. I also think that, like, that text box indicates just how much I was afraid of flavor text. That Flying Vigilance text box, while I like how clean it is, it could afford to explain what it is and what it means to be a husk and why he is a paramount of them. Or they are a paramount of them. Ugh. Unnecessarily gendered language. We all have problems with it. It's all a thing we're working on. Dockside Florist, green and a blue for a creature human artificer. It is a 1/1 with 3 and a green and a blue. Or tap. Target opponent creates a 0/1 green plant creature token. Draw a card. Activate only as a sorcery. So, this is a piece of technology that Wizards of the Coast basically trotted out back in Mirrodin 20 years ago, and have almost never used since. You can have alternate activation costs. I think the fact that this activation cost looks that way means it's really easy to pass it as just like 5 mana tap, and it's not. It's tap, you can do this, and you can also do it for 5 mana. I think that this is really strong, possibly too strong for a common. Like, just a free tap, someone gets a 0/1 and I draw a card. Like, just tap, draw a card seems way, way too good. But maybe she should cost an extra point of mana. The flavor of it, I like as a way... again, you have that giving effect. I like that giving, and I like that Green Blue's version of giving is giving bounteously. Like, you're spreading it around. You're giving it to everyone. I think that if you want a disaster polycule, the centerpiece of it of being a green-blue character makes a lot of sense to me, especially if they're dating a lot of red-blues. Anyway, the notion of this character being someone who's distributing something that's growing too fast, something that's a little bit more than they can handle. That plays also into the idea of the life in the setting being all messed up, and so carnivorous plants are growing very aggressively to try and match up. There's a whole thing about the scourging of nature in the setting as well. Anyway, I like this card. I like this effect. I wish there were more places to use this kind of design. I think it's cool. For Yesterday's Promise, it is a saga for 1, a red and a white. Chapter 1, you and target opponent each create a tapped treasure token. Chapter 2, until your next turn, you can't attack target opponent and they can't attack you. Chapter 3, you and target opponent each draw 3 cards. This is a big pile of nice symmetrical effects. that you had to spend a card on. I think that it's robust in its design, and I think that I don't like the thing it's doing well. Okay, so to explain, this is clearly a card where I was conceiving of the fact that multiplayer environments let you change things. Like, any given card that cares about target opponent looks different once you're talking about multiplayer, because you're going to need to pick and choose who in the opponent's space is being the victim. Hypothetically, this card means you can give one opponent a tap treasure token, you and another opponent can commit to not attacking each other, and you and a third opponent can both draw 3 cards. That's cool as a way to break up the circle of effects. You can also treat it as the buffet. You know, everyone gets a serving. That's great. But the problem I have with it is it relating to the name, because the name says for yesterday's promise. That positions the promise in the past and means that the things that are happening now are in response to that promise. And I don't know, splitting up the effect doesn't feel like a promise. If I was going to do this again, and this is awkward because this is a common. This is a lot of stuff to get out of a common. This is a lot of material for a card to generate a common. So I think that generally all of the common all the common sagas I made probably shouldn't be. I had it in my head that sagas could be common and that was just a normal thing, but I really do think in hindsight that I might just be wildly wrong on that front. But this card should probably be uncommon, and it should enter the battlefield, go under someone else's control, and then do things for you and the owner of the card. Now, that's obviously more complicated, and that should probably be rare. Because, like, you'd make it good enough to make it worth their while that they will actually sit it out and go, well, fine, all right, we're going to do these cool things. Especially because it lets you get the second effect faster than you would for a normal saga. So, like, you know, partial credit to me for the idea, but a real botch on the name. The artwork is great. Big shout outs to Marta Nael there. That's really beautiful art. And I think that that's actually the art's orientation. I don't think I altered anything to make that. Frigid Paramour. 3, a blue and a red for a snow creature, human artificer with dethrone. When Frigid Paramour enters the battlefield, target opponent may draw up to 3 cards. For each card they draw this way, put a +1/+1 counter on Frigid Paramour. It's a 3/3. Alright, couple of quick notes. 1, I had to reword that card on the fly. It doesn't say for each card they draw this way on the card. By the strict reading of the rules, that should be fine, but like it should say that for the sake of clarity. 2nd, one of the mechanics was dethrone. Dethrone is really hard to design a lot of cards for, and I should have just bitten the bullet and gotten something else. Snow. One of the things in this big world of excess with a vampire empire in it is that there is a iceberg that has been carved out and turned into a great big party palace, because there is a artist obsessed with something that is in the heart of the iceberg. I think they're going nuts, and I think it's a Lovecraftian horror thing. I can't remember exactly. There is a cycle of paramours. It's a bunch of common cards that all have the word paramour on them. I don't think they hold together very well. I do like about this card the way that this thing seems to depict someone who is working on something. They arrive, they bring you a gift, and the amount you enjoy the gift is how much it makes them happier. I think that that's got some good juice to it, but I don't think that anything in that is particularly... I don't think the card is good. I don't think that anyone's going to be gleefully putting a 5-mana 3/3 that maybe draws someone 3 cards. I think that that's I think the design is very weak. Please ignore those sounds from my app telling me that I need to do some stretches. The Gracious Paramour. Alright, this is more in line with what I think the Paramours should be. This is a simple 1, a green and a white for a creature, Satyr Druid. It is a 3/3. It has lifelink, and when it enters the battlefield, for each player, put 2 loyalty counters on a planeswalker that player controls. So here's the vibe I like about this. I like the way of using different paramours to show different colors, ways of expressing love. In the case of green-white, it isn't just saying, like, I want to increase your love and trust for me by adding loyalty to planeswalkers. It's saying, I want everyone's love and trust to improve. This is the person who brings a bag of chips to the poly party. This is someone who is here to foster all the love they can because it is in their mind an inherent good. I think that the problem this card has is you only kind of want it if you're going to do something cracked with it. I think that a 3/3 for 3 with lifelink is a really nice body in a sensible world of Magic the Gathering. I think that in the low game changes space, in the lower brackets, this is just a solid creature. But also in those brackets, you're not going to have any planeswalkers on the battlefield before she comes down and she can start defending the ground for you. So it's it's a bit of a toss-up. Oh well, maybe for the real Tybolt sickos. Indolent Plenipotentiary. 2 a red and a white for a creature, Vampire Noble, with Dethrone. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to an opponent, target opponent gains that much life. So, this card has tenuous relationship to its colors. The Dethrone is clearly coming from the red, and the lifelink for other people is clearly coming from the white. The effect is you want to use this card to give people life to make your Dethrone cards better, but I think that in hindsight, the juice is not worth the squeeze. I like this art for a red-white character. I do think that this art has this level of ostentatiousness coupled with this effort, right? Like, this isn't just like, I've made myself look beautiful for this event, and that's the thing I've done, but rather it also brings with it, like, so much structure. There's a jester behind her and everything. I think that this has some sinew, but the whole thing needs to be started again from scratch, and part of the problem is just Dethrone isn't very good. I explored Dethrone as thoroughly as I could here, and I couldn't find very much to do with it that was interesting. Moving on. Lover's Escape. 3 a white and a blue. Sorcery. Exile 2 target non-token creatures controlled by different players. Draw a card. This card is another one of those better in multiplayer kind of designs I do like doing. In a straight-up heads-up game, it's exile one of your things, one of their things, and draw a card. That's a design that I think works just fine at 5 mana. I think plenty of people have designed something somewhat like that. Flavor text-wise, here is like one of the thesis statements of the faction, such as it is. Love should be reckless, or at the very least free. Ulaine, Burning Heart. I don't know how much of this I did talking about Ulaine as a person, but I do like the idea that there is like this culturally significant figure that is known, and people do think she's like politically important, and there are like people maybe even hunting for her, where the thing that they are thinking about is this person is telling people dangerous ideas about love. I like that a lot. I think that that's a really good place to go for a story. I think it has literally romantic energy. I think that's cool. I don't know if this card does such a good job. I think that... See, we have the problem that Runaway Together is like a really excellent piece of nugget for flavor text writers flexing their muscles, and we've seen it now 3 times, and every time it's been great. But yeah, I think that this card is a really solid thing. Maybe not a common? Missive Courier. 1 a blue and a black. 2/3. Creature Spirit Nightmare. Skulk. When it enters the battlefield, each player mills a card. Then each player who milled the card with the highest mana value draws 2 cards. I think I can see what this card wants to be and wants to do. I don't think I've done a good job here. So, Missive Courier, the art depicts some kind of spirit thing coming through a wall. This is definitely one for your monster frickers. This is a card that's trying to express some kind of shadowy monster that's doing things in the name of love. As a courier, it's sending a message. So, and the artwork shows this horrible monster handing a flower to this very vulnerable woman. I like this a lot. This is very pretty to me. Immediate thought is that's a bad cropping of the artwork. So if I cropped it like that on purpose, it's probably because the rest of the artwork brings more images and more meaning that I don't want. Or, like, this art, if this art is this vertical, it should probably have been a saga. Like, I suspect, looking at the artwork now in hindsight, I suspect that left-hand side is me using an airbrush tool to just fuzz over something or maybe make an image more wide than it actually is. I think this might be a really narrow artwork. The art clearly indicates something reaching a goal, so it should probably have a commando effect. It should have an effect when it deals damage to an opponent. But it has an enter the battlefield effect, and that battlefield effect is something that rewards people for having big, expensive cards in their deck. I don't know. I feel like it's very clear to me what this card wants to be, and this effect just isn't it. So I think that what happened here is I probably designed the card first and then bolted a flavor onto it. As, you know, that would happen when I was making the sets at a time and 365 cards in like 2 weeks. It wasn't good. It wasn't a good schedule. Sadly, another downvote from me. Mourning Together, 5, a green and a white. Sorcery, Undaunted. You and target opponent's life totals both become equal to half the highest life total between you, rounded up. You each draw a card. This is terrible. The artwork is great. The name is great. The idea behind it, the idea that like I and you have both lost something, so we pull together and become more than the sum of our parts. That's really good. The actual mechanical effect sucks, and the only value it has is not to help you and someone else mourn together, but rather just punish someone who's gone off the rails with a life gain deck. And then in the really unhinged situations of someone's got like 500 life, it doesn't actually do anything about that that's good. It just means that now you have 2 players who have 200-ish life, and that's not even that meaningfully different a problem. This card sucks, and I greatly regret the way I handled this, which is a real shame because like this artwork whips. Great work, Will Gist. Promise Ring, 1, a white and a blue artifact equipment. As long as equipped creature is paired to another creature, those creatures each get +2/+2 and have protection from one another. Equip 4 mana, pair equipped creature to target creature you don't control. You can't pair a creature that's already paired. So, this card doesn't work. This card works more than you think, but it doesn't work. So, the simple thing is like this card's effect of making it so that the equipped creature and its paired creature can see each other, both get +2/+2, and both have protection from one another. That works fine. The equip cost of 4, pair equipped creature to target creature you don't control, that almost works. You can pair as an action. So you can make a card that says, you know, target creature pairs with another creature, destroy all creatures paired to one another, or something like that. Which, you know, whatever. The issue here is this says equip 4, pair equipped creature. At this point, it's not paired to anything. Okay? And it's not equipped to anything. So there's no creature for that pairing effect to recognize. Rather, the way to do this is with an activated ability that says 4, pair equipped creature to target creature you don't control, activate as a sorcery. Like, make it a targeted effect, don't make it an equip ability, which does mean it won't trigger with any other equip abilities, which sucks a little, but, you know, how else are you going to get a promise ring going on? It also would need to specify that when it would also need wording to specify that when the ring is removed, the promise ends or the pairing breaks, which, like, that starts consuming a ton more space. Also, formatting-wise, check out this. This is really fine nitpicking here, but okay, as long as equipped creature, that section of text, please notice the way that it has one word on the next line. That's what I call a dangle. In typesetting, if you can, you want to avoid dangles. They add whole extra lines to work, and you can lose a lot of, as it were, printed space, lots of printed pages, just fixing dangles. If I could, I would try and find a way to word this card's mechanics so that that block was just a little shorter, even if I had to make the card more powerful to compensate. Just because it looks cleaner and it makes the text read better. Anyway, good concept. Pairing is a more powerful effect than people seem to think, and you can do more with it than just Soul Bond. Romantic Yearning, green-white, enchantment aura, enchant creature, enchanted creature gets +2/+2. Sacrifice Romantic Yearning, exile enchanted creature, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This is a flicker effect that you can use as a combat aura. It's fine. It's fine. The notion of being able to use it on an opponent's creature to flicker it and get it to come back, that's a thing I like. I like the idea of being able to say, hey, look, I want to use this to move your creature, can we do that politically? And like maybe your creature will get +2/+2 until such time as I'll buff your creature, you can attack with it, and then I'll flicker it. That's the thing you can negotiate. Uh, the thing is, I think that the yearning that this art represents is less romantic and more nostalgic. I think, especially with the Exile and Return, this is less about a romantic love and more about wanting to go home and then coming back to the battlefield after having rejuvenated yourself. So, not bad. I mean, it is a kind of love, but it's definitely not a romantic love. Real mess up on my part. Ruinous Heartbreak. 2, a red, a black, sorcery. Each player reveals cards at random from their hand until they reveal 2 non-land cards, then discards each non-land card revealed this way. Alright, this one's a bit of a walk. In Dissension, the Magic the Gathering set, third part of the Ravnica block, there was a cycle of split cards that were designed around, in some ways, like bringing back older cards, but with modern multiplayer, modern multicolor formatting and multicolor and better wording. One of the cards was a card called Rise/Fall. Rise was bounce and a reanimation spell, bounce and raise dead effect. Fall was a kind of Hymn to Turak. You reveal 2 cards at random and then discarded any non-land cards revealed that way. I thought it was a really cool card. I did try to use it in situations where I shouldn't, and I think the editor of Starsea Games publicly demolished me while I was using it at one point. Can't remember exactly. But that card stuck in my head when I was designing this set, when I was designing cards about love, because you fall in love. There is a helplessness. A red-black vision of love would be that this is a thing that's happening to me. This is a thing that's being done to me, and it changes me in some ways. I liked the idea of representing red and black's relationship to love as including these dangerous elements, this loss of self. The artwork is pretty terrible for what I wanted because it's very clearly cyberpunk, and the text is about the idea of the vampires in The Crown who are all like fighting each other and draining each other to try and find the one vampire who's got the most royal blood in them. Like, you can become the king of the vampires by drinking all of the royal blood that's out there. That's their mindset on this stuff. Which, novel idea, bit stupid, but whatever. So I wanted to make a card that's like, I fall in love so hard, everyone around me lands in the crater. So what I did was I tried to make a card that represented fall in a multiplayer setting. And I mean, it's probably good. But you probably don't need a big multiplayer Hymn to Turak. It's not powerful. You're not going to see it at high bracket tables, because targeted discard is much better there. But at a low bracket, you're not going to see it either because it makes you an asshole. I don't know. I think that this is an example of you can but should you design, right? Sanguine Paramour. 2, a black and a red for a 5/2 creature vampire rebel. When Sanguine Paramour enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls. Another target opponent creates X tapped treasure tokens where X is that creature's mana value. So, rule specific note here. If you do not have 2 opponents to target, this card doesn't work because there aren't valid targets. That was intentional. I didn't want this card or this effect to be available in 2-player games. It struck me as I wouldn't know how to price it. And I clearly don't know how to price it here either. It's not a good cost and a body for the effect, but I wanted the story this card tells. The story is there in the flavor text. Vampire romance is rarely tidy. This is a vampire who, encountering a love triangle in which they are involved, decides to resolve it by killing someone, and then using that to deliver presents to the person in question. I like this card a lot. I think that there's a lot of cool beats going on here, but it's not good. It's not a good card. You're not gonna be stoked to tap out for your 5/2, not even quite a Necrotal. And at the same time, you can use it to pop a token. What's the best token you can actually pop with it? Well, actually, it'll come up later. But still, the Sanguine Paramour is a pretty cool card in that it's telling a story. I do want it in the file. I think it should be there. But I do think that, I don't know, maybe change the body and give it menace or something. This is another example of an almost dangle where the creature's mana value. I do think that if I added an extra line of text and then put on top, say, menace, that might compress the font so much that the dangle goes away and mana value gets compacted into the same ability, so the number of lines on the card won't change. These are the things I think about. Togethering Death, white and a black, instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. Destroy target creature an opponent controls. Another opponent of your choice creates 2 1/1 white and blue spirit creature tokens with flying. It's a tuned removal spell for a multiplayer environment. I don't mind it. I think that this one got artwork first. Like, I think that this did something else. Then I found the artwork and went, ooh, actually, that idea. I think it also was inspired by Anna and Nikolai from the video game Quest for Glory 4. I don't know. I don't dislike it. It's not bad. It's probably fine at common too. But I also feel that there's nothing interesting about it. I don't feel like this carries with it the kind of sonorous weight that artwork implies. I don't know. Maybe I'm too hard on myself. Maybe sometimes cards have just got to be like staples. Unified Hearts. 2, a green and a blue for an enchantment. When Unified Hearts enters the battlefield, choose 2 target creatures. Each chosen creature considers all the counters on the other to be on it as well. This should not be common. This as a common is unhinged. I don't know what excuse I told myself to justify that. Even if it isn't powerful, it's weird, and you need weird effects to not show up every draft so everyone can misplay around them. This showing up at rare is exciting and odd. It could have some nice story spotlight artwork. It could be a really cool card. And it could even be costed more aggressively if it worked that way. Rules-wise, I can't tell you if this does or doesn't work. I know I did a lot of research into this one. I know I tried very hard to find different ways to do this, including an effect that triggered every time a counter was added or removed to duplicate that effect on both of them. I also had a version of this that made an aura that copied itself, and then they would just, mirror the effects of both creatures. But this is the closest thing I think I get in the rules wordings to just the it works flavor text. So, I think this can work. Don't know for sure. I did do a lot of reading on counters. War Chant Paramour. The red-green Paramour. 3, a red, a green, creature, human warrior, undaunted. When it enters the battlefield, choose one or both. Destroy target artifact or destroy target creature with defender. I broke down a wall for you. And it's a 3/3. So, in a 4-player multiplayer game, this is a 2-mana 3/3 that pops an artifact and a wall on the way in. It is fine. It is a utility removal spell. I like it a lot because it looks mediocre. And then the more you look at it, and when you consider the context you'd be playing it, it gets cooler and cooler. A 2-mana 3/3 that pops an artifact is a pretty high... you don't get that kind of effect at that mana and with a body that easily. That usually the creatures that do that kind of thing are a little bit worse or a little bit more expensive. And the fact that it can do 2 things, choose one or both, is exciting. I think she's in the file named Debbie as a reference to a Mystery Science Theater 3000 skit. I think this card slaps. I think this is one of the best cards I've designed in this whole collection of 28, just because it's not messing up anywhere. The story it tells and the effect it has are all reasonably aligned with one another, and it doesn't have to blow the doors off to be good. Wave Royal Paramour. X1 black and green. Creature, human wizard, Ravenous. When Wave Royal Paramour enters the battlefield, move up to X loyalty counters from target planeswalker to another target planeswalker. Oh my. It's a 3/1, and if you're not familiar, Ravenous means this creature enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. If X is 5 or more, draw a card when it enters. I love Ravenous. I think Ravenous is one of the cooler mechanics that we've gotten, and it's weird to me that it wasn't just being tested on the Tyranids back in the Warhammer set. I was kind of expecting we'd see it again. I kind of thought we'd see it as a sort of deciduous thing just because, we've solved Hydra wording now. It's just this. It'll just do that. That'll do every time. This is probably the worst of the Paramours because I don't think it does a good job of conveying its flavor. I think that green and black working together is I take from you and give to myself. I think those mechanics work really well because green can almost give itself anything and black can take almost anything. So just putting those 2 effects on a card side by side create a lot of opportunities for drains. I don't think that this card does a very good job of explaining how it is making someone less loyal to someone else and making something more loyal to something else. That feels like gossip. That feels like secrets being exchanged. I like the card. I like the Ravenous effect, but that enter the battlefield effect is just got to go. It's got to be replaced with something that feels better and is more in line with the Paramore effect, where the whole point of the Paramore is it's meant to express a way that this color combination loves. And in my mind, green black loves like an extremely edgy goth girl. There is an element of death and passion and acceptance, but also an invulnerability that comes from that. And big stompy boots. Wreath of Roses, red, green, enchantment aura, enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green red. If you don't control that land, draw a card. This is a great example of a card that I don't think should be printed in any set with standard legality. I think a 2-mana card that ramps you 2 is cracked. You don't have to deal with that in most circumstances. And the thing that this promises is that you can put it on someone else's land to help them with mana, and as a reward for your generosity, you get cards a lot. But there's no way you use this, right? Right? Like the notion of, can I design a giveaway mana acceleration? Like, yeah, you can. This is probably how good it has to be worth considering, but you still wouldn't run it. And like, I don't think it's legacy playable, but the fact that I have to make that consideration is a sign that there's a problem. Also, not for nothing, it's a wreath. Wreaths are traditionally associated with festivals and events, or with mourning. So, what's it doing? Also, none of the art depicts a rose. So, just a real dropped ball on my part here. Now, I think this is my favorite card. No, it's not. Gift Box. 2 for an artifact food. When Gift Box enters the battlefield, target opponent gains control of it. Exile the top card of that player's library. You may cast that card, and you may spend mana as though or mana of any color to cast that spell. For 2 and sack, you gain 3 life. So, this card is a problem, because what I wanted to do, the story I wanted to tell, is I got you some chocolates, and you gave me something in return. As designed, you can give someone the chocolates, eat them yourself, and take their card. Which, don't get me wrong, I believe that is a form of goblin love, but I don't think that that's what the card should be doing. The way to solve this is to make it so that the exile of the card is a when trigger. So when you do da-da-da-da-da, or you have it enter the battlefield, give itself to someone else, and they automatically sacrifice it, gain 3 life, and give you something for it. But either way, it's fine. I thought the Kraken Paramore would be in this list, and it isn't. But yeah, that was 1 month's list of cards. That was my attempts to express love, and I hope that this unscripted little dance through the whole arrangement has been interesting. I hope the pauses where I've coughed haven't been too bad, and I hope you've had some fun. And, you know, if you want your cards to get this kind of treatment, please let me know. I'd be really interested to have a look at them. I will strive to only present cards that are in a state where I can give them this kind of treatment. I don't feel it's nice to bully cards that aren't, like, done. But, yeah, I hope you had fun.